If you got tight hip flexors, you're in the right place, because in this video, I'm gonna show you from start to finish how I go about addressing this issue. It's gonna walk you through things I look for, what to not do, and how to actually address this step by step. Let's get to it. All right, so first up, we gotta see if our hip flexors are actually tight. I use some basic tests to figure that out. First test is the Thomas test. You could be sitting on the edge of a table or a bench. It doesn't really matter, but you get to the edge of whatever you're using, grab one leg towards your chest and bring it as close as you can to the chest. Now with this leg that's down, if the back of the thigh is up like this and not touching the ground or the bench or the table you're using, your hip flexors are probably tight. Versus if it's down like this and the back of your thigh is in contact, it's probably not tight. So if it's up like this and it won't go down, that's a good indication you have tight hip flexors. Another simple test that can kind of cue you in where there's less moving parts is if you just lie down and you keep your legs as straight as possible and you raise one leg up into the air and you try to get to about 90 degrees. Now when your leg is up at 90 degrees, we're really looking at this downside leg here. Now you could see the back of my thigh is in contact with the table. But if you go to lift up and you have this gap that's going in between your thigh and the table, it's a good indication you probably have tight hip flexors, where you can't flatten this out and it's just up like this and there's space. It's another good indication you probably have tight hip flexors. Okay, so the first up is a foot elevated hip flexor stretch. We're gonna be stretching this downside leg. Now we wanna keep in mind, we're trying to bias in this video the iliopsoas muscle versus another hip flexor, which is the rec fem muscle, which crosses the hip and the knee, which the knee would have to be bent to actually stretch it. But we're really gonna just try to focus on this hip level region, or the classic hip flexors, the psoas muscle. So when we're up here like this, depending on how high our foot is, we'll get more of an emphasis on a stretch, one, and then two, how far this leg is back will emphasize the stretch as well. The hip flexors flex the hip up, so getting it into hip extension will put it on more stretch. So the idea with this stretch is we're gonna create a contract relax component to this, so that we're not just like passively hanging out on a stretch. You wanna put some input into the muscles here. So from here, I'm gonna put my leg a little bit back. My toes could be pointing forward here. Now from here, you wanna think about squeezing your abs tight and your glutes tight, and you wanna maintain that tension and then slowly shift your body forward. Make sure you're trying to keep a good upright chest versus rounding, because if you keep your good upright chest, it will add more of a stretch here. So I'm feeling this area being stretched by squeezing my glutes and squeezing my abs. I hold this period of a stretch for say 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, I wanna think about squeezing my legs together. So with this leg, I'm going like this, and with this leg, I'm going like this, but I'm not moving. I'm just thinking of doing that so I can create an isometric. So stretch is done. I squeeze my legs together. I feel my hamstring working. I feel my hip flexor working as I'm squeezing. Hold it for 10 seconds, relax. I want to squeeze my glute to push myself further into the stretch. And now this is on more stretch. Now I'm in a new position, set up nice and tall, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the abs, holding now this for a stretch. After 30 seconds, squeeze together the isometric contraction. Feel my hamstrings working, feel my hip flexors working. Hold it for 10 seconds, relax, and I'm gonna squeeze my glute and push myself even further into the stretch and keep my chest up tall. Now I feel more of a stretch here. So you don't wanna just hammer a stretch like this and get into as deep as you can. Work into progressively getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the stretch. Concepts here are important to understand. Don't rush through stuff. That's what everyone does. That's why no one gets results, because it doesn't work. Step by step, that's how you get results. Manipulate the height variation here. Higher, more of a stretch. The leg further back, more of a stretch. Squeeze the glutes, squeeze the abs, shift forward until you feel a stretch. Keep your chest up tall. Hold it for the period of time, 30 seconds. Contraction for 10 seconds, relax, shift further into it. Repeat the cycle about 4 times. So you can get about 2 minutes of time under tension here. Okay, so after we stretch the hips open a little bit, for the contract relax component here, we wanna work on actually getting more extensibility through a range of motion to the hip flexors. So I'm gonna be using eccentrics in the same position. So you don't have to set up in another position. You can just stay right here after you're done with it. Now from here, before I demo it with weights, the idea is I'm gonna think about pulling myself further into the stretch by thinking about this leg going backwards like this. That will help me pull myself into the position. If we don't do this and have mindset and mindfulness into this position, it's just useless. You have to make sure you're thinking of these concepts while you're doing eccentric loading so that you get more out of the stretch. So from here, if I'm up here like this, my leg is back, I'm not gonna just do this thing. It's not doing anything. I wanna think about really pulling myself into it and focusing on all the muscles that are working. So from here, I'm gonna use my glutes and my hamstrings hard to drive my leg back, which then pulls me into the stretch. I keep my chest up tall, and as I'm pulling myself into the stretch, I'm feeling a nice stretch here. I get to the end position, and I'm gonna push myself back out of the position by the front leg and also this leg. So when I'm here like this, I'm pushing myself back out of the position like that, right? Leg's not moving though, but I'm thinking of doing that. So from here, I pull myself into the position and then I push myself out. Pull myself into the position and push myself back out. Now setup here is also important too. You don't want to be too far where as you're going, your heel is lifting off. Try to keep your heel down. That will emphasize more hip extension as you do this versus your heel coming up like so. So keep the heel down to emphasize hip extension. Now with eccentrics, we want to really get overload and leverage into the stretch so we can really feel our muscles working. That will get more stimulation into the muscles. So you can hold kettlebells or dumbbells by the side of your body and perform the same exact thing. Where I'm here, I pull myself into the stretch. I feel it working now at end range. I could hold it for a little bit just to get more time, and I pull myself back out of it. Then I'm pulling myself back into the stretch and pulling myself back out of it. The idea is we're using our muscles to get us in and out of positions, which then teaches our body how to function at end ranges of motion, which then ultimately improves flexibility. So when you're doing this, if you're just shifting your weight back and forth, you might as well not even do it. You gotta think about really loading this tissue at end range and controlling it. So you can manipulate different variables. I pull myself into the stretch, hold it for a second or two, pull myself back out of it, and you could use weights for overload and leverage throughout this. With eccentrics, I like anywhere from 3 sets or 4 sets of 8 because if you do it right, it's a good amount of loading throughout it. And it should be sufficient enough to really get some good stimulus here while using weights. Now, if you're not using weights, you might have to go a little bit higher in the rep range, 15, 12, 15. But if you are using weights, you're working on the end range with the eccentrics. 3 to 4 sets, 6 to 8 can really do a lot of good for this region. All right, so after we're done working on opening the hip flexors with the contract relax and then the eccentric, we've opened up this front part of the hip. But now we have to work on the back part of the hip, the glute muscles, to work the opposite side of the joint to teach the muscles to function at end range. Because if you miss this part, you're working on muscles getting loose and less stiff, but you're not teaching it how to control different ranges of motion. So we're gonna be working on a straight leg position, like we stretched it in the straight leg and we put eccentrics in the straight leg. We have to put it now on a straight leg position and work it in that range of motion. So from here, I'm setting up, I'll be working this leg. So I have my kettlebells just for some leverage where I can actually hold onto this. Now from here, my leg is gonna be straight, and then I'm gonna try to get my heel to the sky using my glutes and my hamstrings. Now the leg won't go high. The purpose isn't to get it up like that. You're just compensating throughout it. It's end range training, so it's gonna be very little of a lift off. So from here, straight in the knee. Now I'm just gonna brace everything, core stays tight, glutes and hamstrings, and I'm gonna lift my heel to the sky. Hold, back down. Straighten out the leg, lift, back down. You wanna think about getting the leg long, so further back behind you, and then lift off to emphasize really the work being done to the proper area of the body. So here, get the leg long. Think about driving the heel backwards, straighten out the knee, keep the knee locked out, lift, back down. Straighten, lift, back down. And we're really working on that end range control to the glute. With this, I like reps, 3 sets of 6 to 8. You can hold it for a little bit of time, and it should be actually challenging if you're doing it right. If you're just lifting off, you're like, I don't feel like working, then you're probably doing it wrong, because this could be hard for very flexible people if you're getting at end range. If you're compensating throughout it, that could be another reason why you might not feel it. You don't want to be in this position and pushing down through this leg to then get yourself back up. As you're in this position, I'm thinking of this knee to my chest as I'm doing this, and I'm focusing on that leg working versus pushing through this leg to help assist it up. That's a compensation. That's why it could probably be easy. So knee to chest as you do that while then lifting off. That's one. And then also another one is not being at really end range. So if you're up like this, it'll be a lot easier to lift your leg up, as you can see, versus if I'm rounded like this and I'm locking out my back to then really just focus on the end range. And then also when you're using a little bit of support, just make sure you're not holding on for dear life, where you're just de-emphasizing the actual position here. So there you have it. Those are 3 simple exercises that you could be doing. Now, you might be thinking, like, wait, that's it? Like, that's not enough exercises. That's kind of where a lot of the problems lie. We tend to do 9,000 different things. We gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta try this, we gotta try. When in reality, we just need volume 2 specifics that target that area. You get good there, then you build off of it. Now, there's millions of exercises you could do, but that's not the concept. The concept is to understand what's stiff and tight on you, how to address it in a strategic way, and then build volume to that to get results, and then you can go off of that. There's different positions you can get into. There's different amount of loading you can get into. There's different ways to strength train into, of course. But this gives you a simple way to go about addressing this area that's typically stiff on people. In this case, we went over 3 exercises. Contract relax component to get the hips less stiff, less tight. Then you eccentrically load into that range of motion, and then you work on the opposite side of the joint to help the joint function better in that new range of motion. That is the 3-step process that I follow in terms of getting people more flexible, less stiff, less tight. Now, I do also have components of what's called pails and rails contractions into it, but in this video, kept it simple, did contract relax only, but I definitely do eccentric training and activation. But again, the idea is to keep it simple for you and give you some strategies that you could actually do without getting overwhelmed, and you can actually make some really good headway with this. So if you stay consistent to it and you build up volume to these 3 exercises 4 times a week for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, your hip flexors will probably start to feel really, really good. But a lot of times, again, we get confused by doing different things. We see this, we try this, it doesn't work in a week and we give up. That's kind of the problem. That's why things persist. We got to make sure we're implementing this stuff in the right way. Hopefully this video was helpful. If you did learn some things about this and you like this and you found value into it, don't forget to subscribe down below, like this video, leave any comment down below. This is Dr. Nick. I'll see you on the next one.